One of the associate, I'm one of the attorneys here at the Texas Hotel and Lodging Association. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy days to tune in to our series three of short course. As some of you may know, traditionally THLA puts short course on at the beginning of January. But this year, given COVID and the safety of our professors and students being top priority, we changed this to a virtual format. And so we went through and got the top three speakers and top three topics. And this is the third one. And I'm proud to announce Dr. Stephen Barth, who is an attorney and author of many items. He's a faculty member of the Houston Conrad College. He was an adjunct professor at Texas Tech University. He has well over 20 years of experience in the hospitality world, both legally, both professionally. He's a speaker on many issues, regionally, locally, and nationally. And we're very honored to have him here to speak with all of you. In addition, we have Doug Horn, who many of you already know on this call. He's a past THLA board chairman. He sits on our board now. He's full of wisdom and has over 25 years of industry experience. And we're just so honored to have both of them here. And so without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce Stephen Barth to take it away. Go ahead, Stephen.
Thank you, and I appreciate it. Nice to be here, everybody. I know these are challenging times, so we're going to make this as lively as we possibly can and breeze through the next 80, 90 minutes and give you some takeaways that I think will help you operate your properties, at the same time grow your career. It's always an honor to participate in short course. The folks at THLA do a fantastic job of supporting this effort and putting it on, and just happy to be a part of it again. And today I'm joined by my good friend, and who I think is the absolute hotel guru of the United States, Mr. Doug Horn, as it was mentioned. So Doug's going to be chiming in with some commentary from time to time, and I'm looking forward to that. Having said that, if you have a question, pop it in the chat and we'll try to get to it as soon as we possibly can. So if everybody's good to go, I'm going to share my screen, I think, and we're going to get cracking. There we go. And I think we're there. Doug, can you see my screen?
Got it. It's loud and clear.
Cool. So they've asked us to talk to you today about positive leadership for positive performance. And so look, everybody read that disclaimer. Okay, did you? Okay, great. So that's more for legal talks. Anyway, I want to start out by visiting with you a little bit about why we are where we are, and not ignoring COVID, but there are other reasons why we're in the situation where we're in, where things seem to be moving quickly, change is happening so rapidly, hard to get employees, hard to keep employees. So lots of things to talk about. Let's start out with this little chart here, and you can see down on the bottom left, this is all about how technology has grown in an accelerating fashion. We call it the exponential progression of technology. If you're familiar with exponents, squared, cubed, right? That's the exponential progression. So here we had the printing press back in 1400, but it was almost 200 years, if you look at the bottom of that orange dot, before the next big technological innovation, that was the telescope. Then Doug Horn came along in 1750, and he and his co-host started the steam engine, but that took 150 years. But look what happened. It was only 50 years before we got the next one, which was the telegraph. And then once the telegraph, it was only about 25 years before we got the light bulb. Then it took a little longer to get the telephone in the car, but oh my gosh, look what happened after that. We put a man on the moon, and then we exploded when the first microprocessor was developed, then the word processor, and then if you look at what happened, it's happening all the time. So what we went from, ladies and gentlemen, was a 200-year window between innovation to now we think that it's about every 2 weeks that technology replicates itself in the world some way, somehow. What does that mean for you? It means that there are extraordinary changes happening all of the time. It also means that technology is often replacing labor, which can be a scary thing for the people that work for us. And so we need to think about how we can create the culture that we want, so people will want to work for us, they'll want to stay with us, they'll be able to manage this accelerated change, and we'll all have a good time doing it. So artificial intelligence is driving a lot of this change, and so is machine learning. Doug and I were talking earlier about the impact that all of this is having, and I want to get his thought in just a minute. But when you think about AI and you think about machine learning, we think about, okay, this is going to take the place of people. Well, let me show you why we're not there yet. Everybody read this to yourself. Actually, you can read it out loud. I'll read it with you. Ode to the spell checker, right? Everybody uses spell checker. I have a spelling checker. It came with my PC. It plainly marks for my review mistakes I cannot see. I strike a key and type a word and wait for it to say whether I am wrong or right. It shows me straight away. As soon as a mistake is made, it knows before too long, and I can put the error right. It's rarely ever wrong. I have run this poem through it. I'm sure you're pleased to know it's letter perfect all the way. My spell checker told me so. So this is exactly why people are still important. This is exactly why you can't just rely on spell checker or artificial intelligence, because it doesn't have the human capability of context and intention yet, right? It doesn't know when you say I-E-Y-E that you really meant I, as in the pronoun I. It doesn't know that when you say mistakes like the beef that you really meant mistakes, as in an incorrect item. So you're still safe. We're still safe. They haven't gotten there yet, but it's coming, but not quite yet. And then, Doug, we have this Internet of Things, even in our hotels. You can often bypass the front desk. You can check in with your telephone. You set up a WhatsApp account for people to say, hey, I need something, or I'd like to order room service. What do you think's going on there? What do we need to think about in that regard?
Well, when I teach my course on guest service, one of the biggest issues and challenges that everybody has is the ability to have guest contact, because we've actually made it almost impossible, or basically convenient for you, not to have any guest contact. You can get your reservation made through your phone. You can get your key made through your phone. And the end result is, unless there's some sort of major catastrophic issue in the room, you will never see another human being. If it's a standard issue that can be corrected, you go ahead and fill out your app, somebody comes to it, and that's it. You don't have that guest interrelationship that hospitality is all about, which makes it exceptionally challenging.
It does, Doug. And, to make another point around that, we spent all this time redoing lobbies so they would be more social conducing, right?
Absolutely.
And it seems like we're kind of taking that away now. So we're not sure where we're going to end up, but well, we'll keep talking.
We still have people in the 4-star experience, 5-star experience still wish to have that one-on-one contact, and they still do it. But those people who are in 3-star properties or the mid properties, you can now rarely have to see anybody, and you can get it all done before you get there. You can check your room, what the room number is, and that, as operating personnel, we have to find ways to be able to make sure that we have that human contact with that client, because they can go anywhere, and you have to give them that memorable experience when they come to your property.
Yeah, that's a great point. I agree completely. And to your point, I just saw the latest customer service survey that said we are down in terms of customer care and customer service. We're up on cleanliness, down on other customer service areas, so breakfast, housekeeping, et cetera. So we're going to have to really keep an eye on things going forward, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going to be interesting, to say the least. So many years ago, Mr. Doug shared with me the power of loyalty. And so I started researching loyalty. And this book was part of it. I think maybe even Doug recommended it to me. It's called Love Marks, and it tracks the brands that are tremendous love marks that drive tremendous loyalty from their customers to the brand. And so what we've learned over time is that customer service equals customer satisfaction, and customer satisfaction is not enough today. So then we shifted from customer service to customer care, which equals an emotional connection. And Dorothy Dowling, the wizard of all hotel marketing people at Best Western, really started with these videos around emotionally tugging connections. Think about some of the Budweiser commercials with the dogs and the horses. That's what she started to build with testimonials, live testimonials of people that have stayed there, and stories of how employees at some of the Best Western hotels created such a powerful relationship with their customers through different ways of either listening or assisting. And so what we learned is that customer care equals that emotional connection. And then we discovered that that emotional connection equals customer loyalty. And that's what brands that have achieved love mark status have figured out. And for those of you that want to stay in this business, that is a great learning outcome that I hope you'll take with you. Customer service is not enough. Customer satisfaction is not enough. Drive customer care, it equals emotional connections. Emotional connections equal customer loyalty. So let's look at a few examples. People love their Trader Joe's. If Starbucks went out of business, I'm betting half of you would jump off a cliff. You've got Apple, you've got Amazon, right? Let me make a point real quick. Most of you today, at some point today, will say or think, Google it. But I'll bet none of you have ever said Yahoo it. That's the difference between an ordinary brand and a love mark. And then, of course, Best Western, and I mentioned Dorothy. So when we think about creating a positive culture, positive leadership for positive productivity, what you have to start with is the leader. And that can be the GM, it can be the leader at the corporate level, but it can also be the leader of each department. And what you have to realize is that there are only two types of leaders these days: self-advancing, or someone who puts the organization first. Self-advancing leaders, they typically look and interpret everything through an egotistical, egocentric lens. The other type of leader that puts the organization first, they interpret and listen from an authentic, objective lens. It's not all about them. The first type of leader, they usually come in with a big bang and they leave chaos in their wake, kind of like a tornado or a hurricane. The other type is not as fast, but they get it done. They make significant changes. They listen to their people, and they leave a legacy of positivity. I just saw the announcement. I'm coming back to Best Western because it's been quite exceptional what they've been able to do with that organization for the last 20 years. And it doesn't surprise me because I've been working with their organization for the last 20 years. David Calm became their CEO 20 years ago. And I bring it up because they just announced that he's leaving the organization after 20 years of enormous success. But David is in this second category. David put the interest of the hotel owners and operators first with every decision that he made. He built a great team of people that were every bit as bright, if not brighter than he was. He listened to them. He listened to the owners and the operators and the developers and his team. And you people that go to work for Best Western, the corporate office, they never leave. People have been out there 20, 30, 40 years. It's quite remarkable when you go. That's the model that I suggest we adopt. Doug, it seems to me today that when we're thinking about building a culture, we have to start with needs, right? But it's not enough just to think about our customers' needs. We have to also think about our employees' needs and our owners' needs. Do you agree?
I totally agree with you. And if I can take just about 10, 15 seconds and go back to your comments about loyalty. There's a book out there as well called Customer Satisfaction Means Nothing. Customer Loyalty Means Everything. That's mainly due to the fact that the way franchises are operated today, there are so many available, and when I say available, there's all sorts of different brands under one franchise, and they'll put them 2 blocks away from you. And the loyalty programs that they have can be achieved at any one of these properties. So you have to make sure that that guest who comes to you has a memorable experience, which develops the loyalty that Dr. Barth was talking about earlier. So make sure that you have that kind of culture that you're trying to put together, because the needs, as he's in on this slide, the customer needs is number one. But because we are not just in the hospitality business, we're in the real estate business in many ways. The owners have to come into this game. But the only thing that motivates all of this is the employees. So I'm sure Dr. Barth will get into that one with regards to how that gets achieved.
Yeah, we're going to talk a lot about that. Thanks, Doug. I'm not familiar with that book, but I'll definitely check it out. And obviously, I agree completely. So let me give you an example of what it means to be on a team, just so that everybody's on the same page. So I want you to put yourself in being in a university classroom. Just close your eyes for a moment and imagine that you're in a university classroom. Take a deep breath. Let it out. And the professor walks in. I'll be the professor. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Hotels. Let's make it 4,000. It's an advanced class. This semester, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to work the entire semester in teams. You'll do your homework as a team. You'll do a presentation as a team. You'll do a paper as a team. You'll take your midterm exam as a team. All 5 of you on the team get to work together to come up with the best answers on the midterm exam, and everybody gets the grade scored on that midterm exam. Here's the caveat. Here's the addition. Here's the other thing. We're going to have a final exam in this course, and all 5 of you will have to take the final exam all by yourself without help from anybody else. And all 5 of you will receive the lowest grade scored by any other member on your team on that final exam. And the final exam is going to count 75% of your grade. So just so that I'm clear, if Doug and I are on a team and Doug makes 100 and I make a 50, Doug and I both get a 50 on that final exam. Now, I know from historically asking audiences how many people want to be on that kind of team, and almost everybody says no.
Steve, let me stop you there. I just got something in the chat room that they've lost sound. Is that still true?
You're
I
coming
have
in loud and
audio.
clear to me.
Maybe it was just the one individual.
Okay, let's keep an eye on that though, so we can include them if possible.
Sorry to interrupt you, but just
No,
wanted, I didn't know if that was
anytime for
system wide or not.
Yeah,
Okay.
There's that technology again. But what it means is that, but ladies and gentlemen, nobody wants to be on that team, but that's the team you're on every single day at your hotel. We get the lowest grade scored by any member on our team at our hotels. And so a lot of people think, well, it's the weakest link in the chain, or it's the lowest common denominator. No. The point of this story is that if it's 2 weeks before that final exam, what would you do with your team? You would coach them. You would teach them. You would make sure they're ready. You would practice. You want them to have a positive attitude. You don't want them to be fearful. You want them to know that you're right behind them, that you support them, right? That's what you would do. And when is our final exam at our hotel? Every time we touch a guest. And since I'm a lawyer, I mean that figuratively, not literally. But anytime an advertisement goes out, anytime a customer interacts with one of our employees, those are our final exams. And we need to be sure that our team members are fully prepared to embrace and engage those moments with our customers, because that's customer care. So that's what it really means to be on a team. This slide's a little off, I apologize. But you'll notice this is an example of most organization charts that I see. You typically have the owners at the top, and the general managers and the supervisors and the employees, with the employees at the bottom. The problem with most organizational charts, ladies and gentlemen, is they don't put the customers in the organization chart. Because if you put the customers in this chart, is that really reflective of what goes on? No, the owners aren't the ones visiting, interacting with the customers on a regular basis. Oftentimes not the GM, oftentimes not the supervisors, but certainly the employees. So when you think about it that way, and if you really need to shift your thought about an organizational chart for your unit or for your hotel, and I would suggest it needs to look something like this, so that your owners are supporting your general managers are supporting your supervisors supporting the employees and their interaction with customers. Think about it this way. If you built a hotel today, where would you put the foundation? You would always put it at the bottom. That's the strength. That's what helps you withstand the storms. That strong foundation. And that's where effective owners, general managers, and supervisors want to work from. They want to work from the bottom because they're the strength. They're the experience. They're the ones that support the others. Just like the foundation of the building, they support the infrastructure of your hotel. So I hate to be the one that tells you you're working your entire life to get to the bottom, but that is where effective leaders work from. Doug, how would you like to have engaged, productive, and committed employees?
That's what you strive for all the time. What you were talking about in the last slide, back when Ballenbach was in charge of Hilton, I heard him, and I was running a division of about 65 properties. I heard him make a statement on a morning show that just messed my head up. And it was basically, the first thing I think of every morning is to make sure that my general managers think of the stockholders. And I thought, holy moly, what happened to the employees? What happened to the customers? What happened to hospitality? So your slide reiterates the importance of making sure that you start with the customers, you start with the employees. Because if you have engaged, productive, and committed employees, you're going to be successful. They'll be successful, you'll be successful, the hotel will be successful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, let's find out how to get them. So there's a book out if you're interested. It's called The Carrot Principle. It was actually written by a couple of people out of Houston, but they looked at the results from a survey, a worldwide survey of 200,000 employees. And on the survey, it asked the employees, what types of characteristics does an organization need to have for you, the employee, to be engaged, productive, and committed? And let's be clear, being involved is one thing. Being committed is a totally different level. In the concept of bacon and eggs, the hen is involved, but the hog is darn well committed, right? So that's what we're looking for. Doug, I know you laughed at that. Okay. What the employees came back with, ladies and gentlemen, is they want high levels of direction, high levels of communication, high levels of trust, and high levels of accountability. Yes, your employees are saying, hold us accountable. You know why? Because good employees like to work with other good employees. And if you've got a good employee that holds themselves accountable and you're not holding the people around them accountable, you are going to lose that good employee like a set of keys. So if you have high levels of direction, high levels of communication, you're going to have high levels of trust. And it's up to you to hold people accountable to what their job requirements are, to dress code, timeliness, customer care principles.
One of the
And
things
what-
that you got, let me jump in there as well, Stu. One of the
Sure.
things that you got to recognize, the employees need to know that they represent not just you, because whenever they're dealing with somebody, they're representing the values that you bring to the organization. So if you are projecting the right values, and you're projecting the right trust and communication with the employees, they're representing that when they carry that out to the guest, and when they carry that out to other fellow employees. Many employee manuals basically say, you know, you can get fired for making false and malicious statements. But if you've projected about your fellow employees, but if you projected the kind of leadership that's necessary in your department to set that tone, they're not going to do that. They're going to be projecting the best because they represent you and they represent the organization, and then they represent the brand. So every time they come to work, they do all of that.
Yeah, there's a great synergy there, as Doug just pointed out. Great comment. Thank you. So look, what these authors discovered, ladies and gentlemen, is that organizations with these 4 characteristics: direction, communication, trust, and accountability. And just so we're clear, well, they created these, if they had these 4 characteristics, they discovered that organizations had a higher ROI, return on investment, just by having these 4 characteristics. And how much do these 4 things cost? It's really just an attitude, and it's an approach, and it's a model. It takes some time, sure, and time is money, but it's not an enormous investment, and the ROI goes up. But let me share one other thing they discovered. When they were looking at these organizations that had these 4 characteristics, that had these 4 qualities, that had a higher ROI, they saw a subset that had an even higher ROI generally. And they wondered, they asked, is there a common denominator among the higher ROI organizations? And there was. It turns out, if you start with these 4 qualities: direction, communication, trust, and accountability, and you sprinkle in generous amounts of praise and recognition, ROI zooms. It was so powerful, they called it the accelerant. Praise and recognition, especially today, because a lot of people are fragile today, given what's going on with COVID. And I think we all have to recognize that praise and recognition can go a long way to helping people weather this storm that we're facing. Doug, has it been your experience in the hotel industry that there's generous praise and recognition?
As much as it should be. When you go back to your other type of leadership slide, where you have somebody who's working for themselves, so they climb up the ladder versus working for the organization. It is one of those things where you can have people who are not grateful. The praise and recognition has to come with thanks. If somebody pulls an extra shift, if somebody does something extraordinarily good for one of your customer bases or for a fellow employee, that has to come with a large amount of not just recognition, but thank you so much for the job that you did. Dropping in this day and age, there's ways that you can drop some form of thank you, whether that be on Twitter or whether that be on an email that goes out, whatever is necessary, that gets copied. If you're on an email, it gets copied to your boss so that they know that somebody on your staff has done something exceptionally good.
Great point. Love that. I hope everybody will think about that. You know, you're looking for things that we call share worthy, right?
Right.
Share that praise and recognition with others every chance you get. Okay, let's take a look at why employees leave us. And this top one is the one that drives me absolutely crazy. Not scheduling in advance. Look, I know the hotel business is tough. I know it's even tougher now. But ladies and gentlemen, if you're still scheduling people on Sunday for the coming week, again, I use this analogy because I think it's a good one. You're going to lose those people like a set of keys. 80% of my students that work in the industry said their employers still put up the schedule on Sunday for the coming week. What are you telling your employees when you do that? You're telling them that you don't care about their life. They don't have the ability to plan. They don't have the ability to think about childcare. They don't have the ability to think about things they want to do during their time off. They can't focus on school. It's a very ineffective and poor method of treating people. I suggest at least scheduling a week in advance. My preference is 2 weeks. I know it's challenging because it's based upon demand often, but there could be a baseline. Doug, what do you think?
Things that we have is a challenge nowadays, the lack of personnel that is coming across. So you are pushed to be able to get your scheduling out, but you should do it at least a week, if not a week and a half in advance, so that people can figure out what their schedules are and how they can plan their life. Failure to do that, I mean, that's one of the biggest complaints in the restaurant industry, is because the servers don't know when they're going to come to work. And the end result is, why? Why can't we do that? We have enough patterns in our industry now. We have enough data with regards to groups that are coming in, IBT travelers that are normal, to be able to work out what you need to do with regards to your scheduling. And you should do that as a courtesy to your employees.
Agree completely. There's a software platform called Hot Schedules. Doug and I don't get a commission from it, although we should. But it's just an example of a system that can help you do that. It also can track when employees change shifts, and it really eliminates a lot of drama. So, and it's not a large investment. I encourage you to look into that. The other reason, and these aren't in any particular order, but lousy paid time off, we need to do a better job in the industry. We depend upon people that travel. If we give people more time off, they will travel. I mean, come on, let's think it through. And here's the other reason people leave, because we're not holding employees accountable. The ones around are good ones. And this is so crucial. And this was developed before COVID. We were not embracing remote workstations. Your marketing people, many of your salespeople can work remotely, and they could before. And when we had a hurricane in Houston, I'll never forget a couple of my students who worked in sales positions. Their sales manager said, "You have to be at work." And I was like, dude, it's so dangerous. How can you expect these people to come sit at their desk when they could very easily log in and take care of business and get more done than spending an hour and a half trying to navigate the water to get to work and an hour and a half to get home? We have to think differently, ladies and gentlemen. Old school thinking is not going to get us where we want to go, and it's not going to get us the employees that we want. And it's not going to create the culture that will attract the employees that we want. And then finally, they leave because we're not sensitive to our employees' physical health. I get a lot of pushback on this, but having somebody stand behind a front desk for 8 hours a day is not being sensitive to somebody's physical health. In the Iraq War, when we made somebody stand for 8 hours, that was called torture. So there are things you can do to mitigate that. You can put good thick mats down. You can put a stool down. Even banks sit people down on stools. And when a customer comes in, they stand up. Or we're starting to bring people out from behind the desk and sit at lower desk. And I get that. And I think that's a good step forward. So we need to rethink our entire concept about employees and how we treat them in the workplace. Douglas, what do you think?
I just want to add a couple of things on number 3, where you're not holding employees accountable. All employees have to be, you can be a hard taskmaster. I have a plaque in one of my offices that basically has me writing a picture of a guy riding a bronking horse. It's called the pile driver. That was my nickname. But the bottom line was that I held employees accountable, but I held them equally accountable. You can have favorites that work with you, but if they do something wrong, they have to be disciplined the same way as the person you don't like. Because if not, it corrupts the basic principles of what your operations are. Then not being sensitive to employees' physical health, we started adding changes to the employee lunches so that we would turn around and make a healthier lunch for people. We worked out programs to where if they could do gym work, bring us to the cost factors. If they wanted to sign up, we might sponsor half of the gym work. We are always sensitive to somebody who wants to better themselves, not only emotionally and or through their business, but also physically, because that makes a much better employee long-term.
And Doug, I'm so glad you said emotionally, because today with COVID, a lot of people are fragile, and we need to accept that, and we need to be mindful of it, and we need to do whatever we can to help our employees navigate their way through these challenging times.
Absolutely.
And ladies and gentlemen, if you think we're out of COVID, you haven't been paying attention. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on, but you've got to be in tune today with physical and mental health, and emotional health of your employees. So it's no longer HR, at least I don't think it should be. It should be people and culture, right? That's what we're focusing on. You got good people and they want to hang around because you have a great culture, and that's what you're striving for. And so for the rest of the presentation, we're going to talk about how to create that culture. And it starts with hiring people that have grit, resiliency, and perseverance. When you're talking to people in interviews today, these are the things you're looking for. Give me an example of a challenging time that you faced and tell me how you handled it, right? I don't know. I want to know those types of things about people. Tell me about tell me your life story. How did you get where you are, and where do you want to be in the next year? But tell me how you're going to get there. Have them do a little gap analysis for you to see if they can think, to see if they're willing to put in the hard work to get there. But these are the qualities you're looking for in people today: grit, resiliency, perseverance. And then you want to have fun. You want to hire people with great attitudes. You give me somebody with a great attitude, I can teach them all the skills in the world. You give me somebody with a lousy attitude, not only are they not going to want to learn the skill, but they are going to poison the well for everybody else. Recognize that your employees are also your customers. Treat your employees as customers. And as Doug mentioned to you, they will turn around and treat your customers well, like you want them to be treated. Let me give you an example. Understand that the way you treat your employees is the way your employees will treat your customers. 10 years ago, when Delta made a change at their CEO position, they promoted their CFO to the CEO, and he's still the CEO today, and he's done remarkable things with Delta. And this was the first thing he did. I was sitting in an audience of his top business travel customers, billions of dollars of airline spend sitting in that room. And he looked at his top customers, and one of the first things he said to them was, "Ladies and gentlemen, at Delta, we have been wrong. We have been focusing on you, the customer. From today forward, we are going to start focusing on our employees. Because if we take care of our employees, they will take care of you, our customers."
Steve, if I can add something to that.
Sure.
I've always been a big, I used to travel about 140,000 miles a year. And I was a big fan of Southwest Airlines for a couple simple reasons. Southwest also has a similar philosophy. Their comments are on their company promise. Southwest will provide a stable work environment with equal opportunity for learning and personal growth. Employees will be provided with the same concern, respect, and caring attitude within the organization that they are expected to share externally with every Southwest customer. And that's something that they've always professed from the top down. And they work very hard to make sure the employees get the kind of recognition and have the kind of same experience that their customers should have. So both Delta and Southwest work to achieve that.
Yeah, that Southwest is a great example. And going back to Delta for just a second, we used to laugh, and Doug probably remembers this. Delta, most of us, when we thought of Delta, we used to think, don't ever leave the airport. I mean, it was that challenging of an experience. Today, they top the charts in business travel customer surveys. They have since they made this change. I can't give you a more poignant example of why this model works. Doug's point, Southwest is a great example as well. And they've done this by delivering a tremendous return to their shareholders. So you have to meet the fundamental needs of your employees: accurate and timely paychecks and a work schedule in advance. Those are not unreasonable things. And I still know businesses that don't get paychecks accurate or timely for their employees, or you've got to come in and pick up your check. What? It's 2021, right? Come on. Make it accurate, make it timely. People have bills to pay just like you do. We are already borrowing money from our employees every 2 weeks. Really, in an equitable world, employees would get paid every single day. But it's been established that employers in the US typically pay a week after the fact or 2 weeks after the fact. And they use that money. Many businesses are built on the backs of that money that employees basically loan to the business for a week or two, interest-free. So think about that. The very least we can do is pay them accurately and timely and schedule them in advance. Value your employees as whole people with lives outside the workplace. Schedule in advance. Invest in your employees' lives. Give them opportunities to grow, tuition reimbursement, or here's a gift card that you can use to go to a museum, or here's a gift card that you can use to take your children to a theme park, or oh, by the way, we traded a couple of rooms for admission to theme park for all of our employees so they can take their children. When you have Christmas parties, don't think about opportunities for an entire family to come together, not just the people that want to get away from their children, but think about opportunities for all the children to come, the families to do it, so they can do things with their children that they otherwise wouldn't be able to afford to do. Doug, thoughts about that?
I think you're on the right track on that. It may not be always available to a small operator to be able to do that, but it's something that you should find ways to be able to determine what it is that's going to motivate that employee. Yeah. Praise is nice, recognition is nice, but something substantial might be the best thing. That also goes back to understanding and knowing your employees. One of my closest friends in the industry was the gentleman that operated the Hyatt downtown, Don Henderson. And I was always impressed when I walked into Don's property because he knew every employee's name, knew something about them. This is a 900-room hotel, and would ask them with regards to what their needs were and how you doing today and how's your daughter and has that condition gotten better? And he would absolutely know his employees. So that carried over to them, and that culture was just incredible. So if you can't do something that is going to be a substantial reward, maybe you find ways on a smaller level to do something for the employee.
What a great point. And you do that by listening and empathy. Great point. Thanks for sharing that. A lot of people say, well, what if we invest in our people and they leave? We've lost the money. But how about this? What if we do not invest in them and they stay? You want to invest in your people. If you want people to be engaged, productive, and committed, You want them to stay, but that takes investment, time, money, listening, just as Doug mentioned. So as I mentioned, it takes direction to create that engaged, productive, committed employee. And we establish direction by creating a mission statement for the general business and each department. If you go back to your hotel after this program and you don't have a mission statement for your hotel, mention it to the general manager. But if you don't have a mission statement for your department of sales or your food and beverage department that supports the mission of the hotel, then you're not giving enough direction to your employees.
Let me add something there, Steve, as well.
Sure.
Mission statements are nice and they look good. One of the things I mentioned in my class is the fact that mission statements, your boss might turn around and say, well, Hilton's got a mission statement, which is a catch-all that somebody came up with in a back room to promote franchises. Same thing with Marriott, same thing with IHG. Southwest, and you go back to my friends from Southwest, their mission statement is the dedication to the highest quality of customer service delivered with a sense of warmth, friendliness, individual pride, and company team spirit. Now, if that's the kind of mission statement you want, if you want to turn around and say, I want to do this, do it in your department. Make sure that your employees in your department alone know what your values are and what you're trying to achieve. The other thing I'd like to state about that is the fact that you are the conduit for the employees that you work with. They are reliant upon you to carry their message to your boss, and you are responsible for their success. By being and accepting that responsibility, you will make them successful and in turn make yourself successful.
The perfect segue into the next slide, which is once you get that vision, that mission for your department, then you create goals for each of your employees, that if your employees achieve those goals, you have achieved the mission of the department. And then if each department achieves their goals and their missions, then the hotel has achieved its mission. Don't make it complicated. A mission statement for the hotel, a mission statement that supports the mission statement of the hotel at each department level, goals that if they're completed, achieve the mission. Boom, boom, boom. And then your job becomes to help people set goals. And you can look up, this is a SMART goal. I just bring that to your attention. You can Google it. And they're specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. That gives you something to coach people about and to measure their performance and to give meritorious, something that's earned, a raise or promotion. Because if you don't have goals, then you're just really using your discretion to give people raises or bonuses. And that's not fair and it's not equitable. And that sets you up for litigation in discrimination cases. So be careful. Goal settings have a big place in a business to avoid litigation. Keep that in mind. And here's the key. Recognize that if your employees achieve their goals, that you achieve yours. So your job becomes to facilitate, teach, and coach your employees. Setting the goals is the first step. Then you support their efforts to achieve those goals. You want to facilitate by giving your employees the tools they need to achieve their goals. Doug, how long did it take for us to finally realize that a 100-pound woman couldn't push around a 250-pound housekeeping cart?
Long time. I mean, it's ridiculous when you sit there and you take a look at what you require your employees to do without understanding what that task is. One of the things I used to do as a general manager on property was I would take my sales team and wrap them up in saran wrap and then make them work after a banquet so that they would understand what the stewards did. And I promise you the appreciation level for the work and the cleanliness that was necessary shot up 100 times. I make desk clerks clean rooms so that they understood what the housekeepers had to do. The end result is that you have people who understand other jobs and other departments, and the end result is a greater appreciation, better camaraderie, and a better team spirit.
Exactly. Exactly right. Could not agree more. So, and you've got to understand what they do and the challenges that they face so that you can make changes appropriately. Let me give you one other example that has driven me crazy for 30 years. When I first came to the college, we did a research project because I learned quickly that almost every hotel I'd ever been in had a bathtub, with a shower combination. But I also learned that very few people actually wanted to actually take a bath. So we asked customers, and what we found was less than 5% of all hotel employees physically took a bath. And yet 100% of hotel rooms at that time had bathtubs. Okay, so just with that information alone, we should have moved quickly to stand-up showers. But we didn't. It wasn't until we connected more dots for the industry that said, where do the most injuries occur with our guests and with our employees? Getting in and out of the bathtub. It was only after they felt the sting of liability that they finally made the change. And now I'm on a push. They've all gone with these showers, which I think are great, but they're missing the removable shower head, which there are pervasive in Europe, because it's easier for people to take it, to remove it off the holder and to wash their feet and their legs, so they're not picking up their feet to wash themselves, so the risk of slip and fall is much less. Doug, what's your feeling about that?
I totally agree with you on that. I mean, the problem with the past history is you had to have a tub, and they moved that away. And a lot of the older hotels through the course of development took a long time to convert over simply because of the cost factor involved. But newer hotels that are built, you can't find a tub anywhere. And it is a godsend on a liability issue and slip and fall issue. It's just so much better to be able to do that. And I think it is something that is going to be the continued trend, even in housing, on a housing level. When I redesigned my current house, I took out the tubs, and I was told by the agent, well, people want tubs. And the end result was not really. All the new stuff is without tubs.
I agree. 100%. I agree. But the point of that, ladies and gentlemen, is not to trash bathtubs. The point of that is that we have to think differently and we have to move more quickly. We demonstrated to you how fast technology is evolving today. We have to evolve as well. We've got to evolve with our people. We've got to evolve with our facilities. We've got to put their health and safety first, not just of our employees, but of our guests. The other thing we did, Doug, just on that same point, cleaning, the housekeepers that used to clean in the bathrooms, they'd have to stand on the tub with that sponge to try to clean the top. And it took 50 years before somebody figured out to give them a pole, right, with a sponge on the end of it, so they didn't have to stand on the tub. Well,
absolutely.
50 years and about 2,000 falls by housekeepers, right?
Or unclean tubs.
Yeah. Learn how to teach. Teachers create problem solvers by encouraging people to think. Look, get your people to play games about thinking. Sudoku, or however you say that, Doug. Sudoku? Sudoku.
Sudoku.
Yeah, Sudoku, and or crossword puzzles, or create some fun games to teach them about the hotel. Right? You can do flashcards, you can do scavenger hunts with your team to get to have fun, but also to learn about the hotel and to force them to think. That's important. Or have a game on remembering customer names, right? You can do all the things that you can do to get your people to think, because teachers create problem solvers, and everybody wants your people to be a problem solver, and mistakes are teaching opportunities. Everybody should adopt Google's philosophy: fail quickly. If you're going to fail, fail quickly, but don't worry about failing. If you fail, just do it differently next time, but don't keep making the same mistake over and over again. And that's where you come in with your people. You don't get angry at a mistake. You don't punish because of a mistake. You use a mistake to be a teaching opportunity. And here's the other thing. If an employee makes a mistake or two and it's challenging for you, you need to ask yourself, did I hire the right person? And did I hire them for the right job? And have I trained them properly? Because if you've hired the right person for the right job with the right attitude and you've trained them properly, there shouldn't be a lot of mistakes. Now, people are human. There are going to be some, but not the big ones. There was an accountant that made a $1 million mistake. And when he realized what he had done, he went into the CFO and he said, I'm handing you my letter of resignation. And the CFO read it and said, what? What are you doing? He goes, well, I just cost the company $1 million. I'm going to resign. And the CFO, she looked at him and she said, I just invested $1 million in your training and education. Why would I want to fire you now? So mistakes are teaching opportunities. And then we have to coach our employees. But here's what we do. We find them doing things right and we tell them about it. Back to praise and recognition. And you don't come by this honestly, typically, because when you're children, when do parents give most of their attention to children? Typically when they're doing something wrong. And we've got to flip that on its head, hopefully with your children, but also in the workplace. Your goal when you go to work every day is to find people doing things right and tell them about it. Please, praise, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, are free motivators. I hope you'll take advantage of them. An email does not leave my outbox, my sent folder, without it saying please and thank you. Never has happened, and I hope it never does. And I encourage you to do the same. And you try to roll in some praise every chance you get. Doug, I know you've been around a while. You send thank you notes. You say please. I know a lot. Just a quick story about Doug Brooks, who we both know, retired CEO of Brinker, now on the board of that company. You refer us to, Southwest Airlines. But Doug used to travel around to as many of his stores, Chili's, et cetera, that he could, macaroni grills that he could get to. And every store he left, he always wrote a personal handwritten thank you note. And they loved it. Absolutely loved it. You know, Doug.
Yeah, I can't tell you the value of personal communication like that. I mean, it's easy nowadays to drop an email, to drop a message, to drop something on the phone, but it means a lot. I have in my desk drawer a stack of thank you cards and note cards that are plain. And if I run across something that's taking place that I appreciate, whether it be my employees, I've scaled down. I used to have 4,000 employees report to me. I have about 45 right now. But if I have somebody do something extraordinary, I write a thank you note, not just a go by and pat them on the back. If I've been someplace and have seen something that is exceptional, I write a thank you note. If somebody's done something for you and it's been a memorable issue and it's impacted you, you should write a thank you note, not an email. Write something physical. They're not expensive. Turn around and do something. I still remember and still keep in my file a letter from the head of Southwest Airlines, Herb Kelleher, when I had criticized something that took place and blamed not the employee, but blamed the culture that was happening. It was due to the fact of a late night scheduling problem that happened every Friday. And he wrote me an apology letter and asked me to come address his staff, which I did. And then about 2 months later, I flew on the airlines and I was really short on trying to get a connection. The baggage girl at the baggage person at the at the end run where I got off, heard about the problem, got my luggage out, ran it over to the other place, and then I got to be able to get on that flight. I wrote a note to Kelleher telling what a great employee he had. He wrote me back a thank you note and told me what he was doing for the employee. That's motivation. That's the kind of thing that you need in your culture. And I think people need to really get back to that level of contact.
Cool story. Thanks for sharing that. Ladies and gentlemen, it's important to listen empathetically. We all need to listen more today. Empathy is looking at a shredded chicken salad from the chicken's perspective, right? You have to listen to what's going on with people. You have to devote your time and attention to them. It's important. If you want to change your personal and professional life, learn to listen empathetically. I can't give you a more powerful tool in your toolbox than to learn to listen empathetically. It will change your world. I tell a story about, it was many years ago, and it was a similar educational program like Short Course, but this one was done strictly for all the Hiltons. And this was a group of all the Hilton food and beverage directors, and they were all in a room at the college, and we were talking about the power of listening. And a little older gentleman sitting in the very top back row of the room hadn't said much for the couple of hours we've been together. And he raised his hands and he said, "I'd like to share something with the audience." And he stood up. I sat down. This is what he said. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the food and beverage director at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York City. Big hotel, thousands of guest rooms, and it's unionized, which makes it a very difficult hotel to operate." He said, "I've been there for 25 years. He said, "There's been a sous chef among us for 30 years. This fellow was the greatest sous chef I've ever worked with, but also he only wanted to be a sous chef. That was his ambition. He wanted to be the best sous chef he could be, and he was." But what we noticed about this chef is he was very deliberate and not very accommodating when it came to changing his schedule. We had always gone to this chef when we were overbooked and understaffed and said, "Chef, can you help us out?" The answer was always no. Always no. Well, finally, about 90 days ago, he said, we were overbooked and understaffed. We had an enormous amount of business coming into the hotel, and we were going to do a breakfast to order buffet. I had to have a chef on the buffet line, had to, and I had checked with every department. I checked with every temp agency. The city was totally sold out. The only person I hadn't talked to was this chef, but I didn't have any choice. And I said, "Chef, I need you to come in and work for me Monday morning. And I really could use the help." He said, I'm sorry, I can't help you." I said, "Chef, if you'll just come in this Monday," I said, "I'll give you 2 extra days off during the week." And he said, "No, sorry, I can't be here Monday morning. I'm sorry, I can't help you." And the food and beverage director stopped and he looked at us and he said, "This time I decided to ask him why not." And I said, "Chef, help me to understand why you can't change your schedule for us this one time." And he said, the sous chef told him that, "Well, since you asked," he said, "I have a son who's a quadriplegic." Said he was born that way. He said they're remarkable days, for him to just be alive and among us and around his family. And he said, "I take Sundays and Mondays off every week because Sundays are the days that my entire family comes home and we spend with this son." And he goes, he loves those days with his siblings, and we just great. And I'm not going to change that. And he goes, "Mondays are my days for he and I to spend together." And he goes, "I wouldn't give those up for anything, certainly not just a couple of extra days of the week. And this particular Monday, when you want me to come into work, I have finally saved up enough money to buy him a motorized wheelchair. a motorized wheelchair. And I'm supposed to pick it up on Monday morning when you want me to work. Can you imagine the freedom it's going to give my son? He said it's a remarkable change for him, and I can't miss that opportunity. And the food and beverage director stopped, and he said and he looked at everybody again, and he said, ladies and gentlemen, the sous chef went on for about 20 minutes telling me all about the extraordinary accomplishments this child had achieved, even though he had such a severe disability. And he said, that was on a Thursday. He said, Friday morning, I was sitting in my office, my feet up on the desk, trying to figure out what the hell am I going to do Monday morning? And there was a knock on the door, and he looked up, and it was the sous chef. And he said, he pushed my door open. He didn't say hello, good morning. He just looked at me and said, what time do you want me to be here Monday morning? And I said, no way, chef. You've got to pick up the wheelchair. He said, I've arranged for my brother to pick up the wheelchair. What time do you want me to be here Monday morning? The food and beverage director stopped, ladies and gentlemen. He looked at all the other F&B people, and he said, ladies and gentlemen, the only thing that I did different in 25 years was I listened to what was important to him instead of telling him what was important to me. Folks, I can't give you a more powerful tool to put in your toolbox than to learn to listen empathically. Most people I know have one tool in their toolbox, and it's a hammer. And if the only tool you have in your toolbox is a hammer, then every situation you come up against pretty well looks like a nail. We have to move past that. Add listening empathically to your toolbox to build the culture you're looking for. Learn to disagree without behaving disagreeably, both personally and professionally. If you're in the habit of yelling and screaming or calling people names, you need to devote some time to asking yourself why and developing some emotional intelligence. If you get rabid on the road, if you have road rage, that's probably a metaphor for your life, and you need to behave differently. It's crucial that you recognize what is triggering you to behave that way. It's usually some insecurities and fear. It's certainly not confidence and kindness. Those are the qualities you want to develop. And then remember that successful relationships have the ability to resolve conflicts peacefully. That's what you need to learn how to do. Doug, I'm sure you've had your share of conflicts, but your success tells me that you've been able to resolve conflict peacefully most of the time, not always.
Most of the time you can. There are situations where you are really pushed to a point that you cannot, and you have to listen and try to figure a way out that after a while you go, okay, this is what has to happen. However, the first part of that is listening. What you talked about with regards to listening is very paramount to what you have to be successful in any situation. There's an old line about there's a reason you have 2 ears, 2 eyes, and only 1 mouth. So if you can see what's going on, if you can listen to both sides of an issue, that allows you to be able to put it in perspective from their viewpoint. And as long as you maintain your sense of balance, then you can address the issues and generally succeed in resolving a conflict.
Yeah, exactly right. And let me, this is the road rage piece that I want to tell you, but let me get to this point right here. Recognize and apologize for your mistakes. If you want to solve conflict, learn how to give a sincere apology. If you're not writing anything down, you want to write this down. An apology means that you value the relationship more than you do your ego. Whether it's with your customers, your employees, your significant other, your children. An apology means that you value the relationship more than you do your ego. I have a friend of mine out in California. For 10 years, he and his son wouldn't speak to each other. And I kept saying to him, hey, dude, your son just wants an apology for the way you treated him. Look, you did the best you could. That's all any parent does. But he thinks it's important that you recognize that some of the things that went on we're not that healthy for him. And he's trying his best to cope and to move past those things in his life. And he thinks an apology can really help him. And my friend was so stubborn and egocentric, he wouldn't apologize. Finally, after 10 years, he finally apologized. And now they have a very nice relationship. Don't let your ego get in the way of your life, right? Learn to apologize. Always remember you are on a team. Keep things simple. Don't outsmart yourself. Make sure you set goals, coach, teach, and facilitate, right? And then you'll end up with engaged, productive, and committed employees. So Doug, I've got one last story to share about keeping things simple. Do you have any last comments before we wrap it up and see if there are any questions?
The only thing I'd really like to state, and I end most of my classes with this one, is a quote by Gandhi, which is, "You must be the change you want to see in the world." So if you're constantly complaining about something, if you're constantly saying that this should be done better or whatever, be that change. Be that person that you want to be. Be empathetic. Be sensitive. Listen properly. Be everything that you would like to have happen to you.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm a big Gandhi fan as well. So I like that a lot. I'm going to stop sharing, I think. And I think I should be back now. And Doug's back. And so I just want to, before I get into my story, Doug, can you tell the folks a little bit about short course and why it's so important and about next year?
Yes, I mean, this is just a small example of what you can get on a short course base. I was a past chairman of the THLA. I have been a past short course chairman as well, serve on the education committee. There is no program like this in the United States. It is the only one where you can go for a week and get a full understanding of the hotel operations throughout the building and be taught by people who should be getting $10,000 for their courses. Not me, but people like Dr. Barth and everybody else that's there, from human resources to legal advice to everything else. You should go to this course because you'll come out much better as an operator and as a manager. And I urge that you do it. If there's people in your organization that has gone to it in the past, talk to them about it. Talk to your GM, get him to agree or her to agree to having you come, because it's well worth a minor investment of your building and operations to come. It's a great course.
Yeah, that's great, Doug. And I'm going to chime in about that as well. I've been participating in short course. I hate to admit this, but I think it's been close to 30 years now. Doug, you may have been.
Yeah, I'm not too far behind you. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, let me share this last story with you guys, and then we'll turn it back over to Les for any final comments, so we keep it on time. There's two things on people's minds these days: making ends meet and making meetings end. So we're going to give you a few minutes back. But as I mentioned, it's important to keep these concepts simple, right? Engaged, productive, and committed. Remember, you're on a team. Learn to solve conflict peacefully and apologize, right? Those are your big takeaways, and I hope you'll embrace them. And learning to listen empathically is crucial. But don't make it any more complicated than that. It's leadership and management is not a complicated process, but oftentimes we outsmart ourselves. We overthink it. And here's what happened. I had a friend of mine. She was going through a divorce. And at the end of the divorce, she ended up with a $10,000 CD, certificate of deposit, a savings certificate. And she wasn't quite sure what to do with it. So she went to the bank, and she was visiting with a secretary, an assistant to the vice president that was sitting out in front of the vice president's office where she had an appointment. And they were getting along famously, just having a great time. And the vice president came out and interrupted and said, "Hello, I'm the vice president of the bank, May I help you? And she was a little startled by the interruption. And when she kind of raised up, she dropped the certificate onto the floor. Well, the banker saw it. When he saw $10,000, his eyes got a little big, and he said, "Oh, I see that you have a certificate of deposit here. What about if the bank kept it for you?" And she grabbed it back because she's not very sophisticated financially. And she said, "What do you mean, let the bank keep it?" He said, "Well, when I said keep it, what I really meant was, we can loan you money against that CD, and we'll keep the CD safe for you, and then you can go have the money to spend." She goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, what I mean is we'll loan you anywhere from $1 up to $10,000, keep the CD in our safety deposit box as collateral. And then when you want to pay it off, pay the loan back, we'll give it back to you." And she said, "What?" She goes, "Is there something called interest that goes along with that?" He goes, "Yes, there is. We typically charge 10% for the risk that we take, and the fact that maybe you won't pay it back." And she said, "Let me think for a moment." And she thought about it, and she said, "Okay, I'd like to borrow $1 for 1 year." And the bank officer looked at her and said, "What? You want to borrow $1?" And she said, "Right. You just told me you'd loan me anywhere from $1 up to $10,000 as long as you got to keep my CD, right?" He said, "I guess I did say that." She goes, "Well, you're not going to go back on your word now, are you?" And he said, "No, I guess not." So he went into his office. He wrote up a promissory note for $1 for 1 year at 10% interest. She signed the promissory note, gave the bank her CD. They stuck it in the vault as collateral. She left. Now, ladies and gentlemen, get this picture. 12 months has now gone by. 1 year later, she comes back into the bank. She marches into the vice president's office and she says, "Hi, I'm here to pay off my note." And he says, "Oh, I remember you." So he pulls the loan out of the file cabinet. He lays it open on his desk. She pays the bank $1.10. That's how much the bank earned on that loan. He got her CD and gave it back to her, and she started to leave. And he said, "Whoa, I have to know. You tied up a $10,000 CD all year long for $1. Why would anybody do something like that?" And she turned around and she looked at him and she said, "Mister, it's really quite simple. When I walked in here a year ago and I was visiting with your assistant, before you interrupted me, she was getting ready to sell me a safety deposit box for $250 for the year to keep my CD in. She said you ended up keeping it all year long for 10 cents. So don't outsmart yourself, right? Be in the 10-cent category. Remember, the culture is what matters. It's been a pleasure being with you. Doug, just an absolute delight working with you today. Thank you kindly.
Enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Thanks. Nilesh, back to you and Christy and Jessica.
Well, thank you guys so much. What an excellent presentation, Dr. Barth and Doug Horn. You two are so full of wisdom and insight and excellent stories, and the insight that you share is truly beneficial to all of us. And we can't wait, and we hope that you can join us at the short course coming up. As Doug mentioned to all of you on the call, we are planning on having short course January 10th through the 14th of 2022. So keep an eye on your inbox for that. You should be receiving from Jessica. Stephen and Doug, I'm getting a whole bunch of thank you messages directly to me with great comments about both of you guys. So thank you again, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Thanks for having us, guys. Best of luck, everyone. It's tough out there.
All right. Have a great rest of summer. Or actually fall. Let's hope that works.
Let's hope.